Day 14 concludes in the Karen Reed trial with the conclusion of the direct examination of Jennifer McCabe. Cross-examination is going to begin on Tuesday, not Monday, Tuesday. So now the jury has Friday after court, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday to think about this case. Now, of course, they're not allowed to discuss with each other, but we all know that they're thinking about it. And the last thing that they got to hear was the direct examination of Jennifer McCabe. So Alan Jackson had about 4 minutes. And if you're watching the end of Friday's trial, the day of trial, the prosecutor said we have no more questions. And now there's 4 minutes left. And Alan Jackson said, yeah, well, obviously I have a lot more questions than 4 minutes worth. So let's just pick it up on Tuesday. And like I said to you before, that's usually the knee-jerk reaction of attorneys when you have a whole big, long cross-examination. You know, you just want to start and get everything on the same day. But like I mentioned in my last video, if you have a few strong points, some really good strong points on cross-examination, and you can get the jury, you can get the witness on the stand and let the jury hear a really strong point on cross-examination, then it's worthwhile to have that witness get called, make a really strong point, and then the jury's going to be thinking over the whole weekend, not about the direct examination, which of course looks very bad for Karen Reed, and that's what they're going to be thinking about the whole weekend. They can be thinking about that last point, that last strong point that you made on cross-examination. So again, I think it's something worthwhile to think about tactically, strategically, and Alan Jackson apparently disagreed with me, and therefore he said, okay, we're just going to continue, pick it up on Tuesday. So the day 14 of trial began with Matt McCabe, and we already had Matt McCabe at the end of day 13. We started his direct examination, so we'll continue with that direct examination with Matt waking up to hearing somebody calling Jennifer McCabe, his wife, and screaming into the phone, screaming that it actually woke him up. So he's sleeping in the bed. He's not answering the phone. His wife's answering the phone, and somebody on the other line is screaming so badly, so loudly, that it woke up Matt McCabe. And what does he hear? He hears Jen, Jen, Jen over and over again. And this is at 5 o'clock in the morning, a little bit before 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, he said he didn't recognize the voice. And, okay, that's fine. He didn't know that was Karen. But Jennifer McCabe told him, so Jennifer told Matt, her husband, I'm on the phone with Karen, and she can't find John. And the last time that she saw John was at the waterfall. So Jennifer starts calling other friends who are at the waterfall, but no one answered their phones. We heard some testimony about that earlier. And Matt was asked, well, what did you think about that? And his response was, well, I thought she was crazy because we know that we saw her vehicle, which John was in front of Brian and Nicole Albert's home at 34 Fairview. So how is it that Karen's last time that she saw John was at the waterfall? That doesn't make any sense. And we said to her, or we told Jennifer to tell her, that you went to 34 Fairview. And Karen responded, I don't remember going. I don't remember going there. And then she also told Jennifer that, this is Karen now talking to Jennifer, and this is what Matt knows, that Karen broke her taillight. So Matt McCabe texts John, he calls John, and he didn't receive any response. Then the next thing that he hears is yelling in his front yard. So he hears Karen, obviously it was Karen who came and was yelling in his front yard. And he comes out and he says something which some people feel that it rubs them the wrong way. You can let me know how you feel about this comment that he would make to Karen Reed, who's going hysterical because, at least at this point, Matt McCabe should think that, or should feel bad for her, right? Because she doesn't know where her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, of a longtime boyfriend, is, where he disappeared to. But she comes across and she comes to their yard and she's completely hysterical, screaming, and he comes out and he tells her that she has to be quiet because she's going to wake up the entire neighborhood. That was something that he certainly remembers telling her. All right, you can think that maybe he should be a little bit more considerate and caring instead of just telling her to shut up. But, all right. So he was concerned for Jennifer and Karen to be driving around Karen's car because he understood that the taillight was completely broken and the light wasn't even working. So that's one side of her taillight. One taillight is broken. He doesn't want his wife, Jennifer, to be driving around with Karen with a broken taillight in blizzardy conditions. right? And it was dark outside. Now, something that he said was, well, where did you think? What did you think John was? Were you concerned? And he said, nah, I wasn't really concerned. I thought John was on a couch somewhere. I just thought he passed out on someone's couch. He called a friend. Somehow he got separated from Karen and whatever. He ended up on a friend's couch somewhere for the night. And I think that part of the reason for that is to show why he would be a little bit not so considerate by saying, just be quiet. You're waking up the whole neighborhood, and not being as caring and considerate as he could have been. But let's think about that statement, that he just thought John was on a couch somewhere. Okay, because the testimony came out later that John was not the type of person to just end up on someone's couch. He was very meticulous, and he would always come home. He never, and this is what Jennifer McCabe testified to right after him, he never just did not show up. He's got 2 kids he's taking care of. So he'd always come home. So if that's the type of person John is, and Matt should know this, so then why would he think that John was just passed out on some couch somewhere? Well, maybe he's going to argue that he didn't really know John that well, and therefore that's why he thought that. And maybe that's something you can think. But it was certainly, I thought, worthwhile thinking about. Now, here's another thing that I think is worthwhile thinking about. It was dark outside, right? This was the testimony. Matt McCabe testified to this. It was dark outside, and it was blizzardy conditions. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. Karen comes over to their house and is going crazy. She's hysterical. Matt's up and Jennifer's up. Which of the 2 people do you think should go with Karen to try to locate John? Now, of course, we understand that Matt's saying at this point he didn't think anything serious. He does see Karen going hysterical, but he personally thought, she's probably just overreacting, and John's probably on someone's couch somewhere. Okay, let's continue with that narrative. Let's go with that thought process. It's still blizzardy, and it's still 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's still dark. And you have this hysterical person who's going to be driving around with your wife now. Don't you think that maybe, and again, I'm just putting this question out there. Some people may feel strongly about this one way or the other. Don't you think it would be more appropriate for him to go with Karen to look for John O'Keefe? Protect his wife, let his wife stay at home with the kids in this blizzardy, middle of the night, dark outside. Don't you think that would make more sense for him to go with her? But, okay, you can let me know what you think about that. Next time, and then here's another interesting part. The next time that he speaks to his wife, after Jennifer leaves with Karen, the next time he speaks to her is an hour later. A whole hour later. That's what he said. That's what the testimony was. And I think that's a little interesting. Here's again, your wife's leaving, even though you don't think anything seriously wrong with John. Fine. You think he's on a couch somewhere. But your wife just left you at 5 o'clock in the morning in the pitch black outside, blizzardy conditions. You're not going to send her a text or call within 15, 20 minutes and say, hey, just checking in, making sure everything's okay. It's the middle of the night. You're two women driving around. Everything okay? Did you find John? What's the story? But the next time that he speaks to her, this was his testimony, was a full hour later. I thought that was interesting, something to think about. And at that point, that's when they found John at 34 Fairview. And once he finds that information out, then he joins them at 34 Fairview. There at 34 Fairview, he speaks to Carrie Roberts. And he testified that everybody there at 34 Fairview looked shocked. Brian looked shocked. Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Jennifer, everybody just looked completely shocked. And while he was there, he spoke to Officer Lank, as we've heard about before. Eventually, he went home, and then Trooper Michael Proctor came in, and his partner came to his house. He never met Proctor before, so there's no relationship between Matt McCabe and Michael Proctor. And here, Michael Proctor did separate each person individually when he interviewed them. Eventually, Brian Albert did come over. This is Matt McCabe's testimony. Brian Albert did come over to kind of help be supportive for Jennifer McCabe. And a few days later, he spoke to another 2 troopers at his house. And again, each witness was interviewed separately, individually. And then this question came up. The question was, how does Jennifer act when in a crisis? Right? Because I think the necessity to go over this is the fact that Jennifer McCabe at the scene seemed completely calm. If you look at the dash cam from all the reports, from the testimonies so far, is that Jennifer was completely calm at the scene. She wasn't running around screaming what's going on and hysterical, like Karen was. All the testimony has been that Karen was completely hysterical, and Jennifer McCabe was completely not hysterical. So you can automatically be thinking, well, if Karen's acting hysterical, then obviously she didn't know what was going on. This was all a complete shock to her. If Jennifer McCabe really knew what was going on, then this is not a shock to her, and therefore there's no reason for her to be running around acting crazy unless she's putting on an act. But if Jennifer McCabe knew what was going on, so that would make sense why she's so calm. So the prosecutor needs to take care of this problem. So he asks Matt McCabe, he says, well, tell us about how Jennifer acts generally in a crisis. And his response was that Jennifer has always been as cool as a cucumber. She's very calm, cool, collected, even when a crisis hits. And therefore, no one should think or make any assumptions by the fact that Jennifer McCabe was calm at the scene that she had anything to do with this. This is just how she acts. She's completely cool and calm and collected. The problem, I think, that the jury can be thinking about, or anybody who's watching this trial can be thinking about, is that, hold on a second, there was some testimony between Brian and Nicole Albert that Jennifer McCabe burst into their room and was acting hysterical. That's what their testimony was. So which one is it? Does she stay calm, like the dash cam footage seemed to show? Or as soon as she got into that house, all of a sudden she acted hysterical and ran up the stairs and burst into their bedroom and woke everybody up and was hysterical? That was the testimony about how Jennifer appeared that morning from Brian and Nicole Albert. So this is the little inconsistency here, which is going to have to be dealt with. All right. So that was essentially the direct examination of Matt McCabe. So the cross-examination went the following. Number one, they wanted to bring out, and this is Yannetti doing the cross-examination, that on January 22nd, Matt McCabe was at the hillside, and John and Karen were there with Brian Albert. And remember, there was some testimony earlier that Brian Albert said that he never met Karen before, and they're showing that he was lying about that because on January 22nd, Brian Albert did meet Karen and John O'Keefe together at the hillside. All right. Continuing on, another theme is that he wants to bring out that everybody appeared happy. The mood was happy that night at the waterfall. Everyone was happy. There's no disagreements. Couldn't tell any tension between John and Karen. Nobody drank too much. No one was intoxicated. And another thing he said, he doesn't really remember Brian Albert and Brian Higgins play fighting, like taking those stances, those boxing stances, which we all saw in the video. So, you could explore that a little bit more, but the fact that Matt McCabe didn't see that, it was only for a few seconds. He did see them holding each other at some point or putting each other in a hold. That we did see for a few seconds, so he did acknowledge that, but he just didn't see them play fighting. So not the biggest deal. All right. Then he gets home to 34 Fairview. This is, again, on cross-examination. So now Matt McCabe came home to 34 Fairview, and then he testifies that he did see this Jeep with a plow parked in front of the 34 Fairview by the mailbox. And the SUV was in front of that car. So you've got I don't think that this was clear by direct examination, but it certainly became clear in cross-examination that Jeep, which was Brian Higgins' Jeep, which had a plow attached to it in the front, was behind the black SUV. And this was in contradiction to what Ryan Nagel and Julie Nagel and Heather Maxim and Ricky D'Antano, which they all testified that no, there was no Jeep there at all. So that's just an interesting point. Okay, and at some point, there was some back and forth, and it seemed to be that Matt was smiling too much. And sometimes when this happens, something like the cross-examination that Yannetti did will occur. And that is that you want to show the jury that they're not taking this seriously. You've got a client, you've got a defendant here, you've got someone who's facing real jail time. This is going to affect the rest of their life. And here you got this person on the witness stand who's not taking this seriously. He's just laughing in your face. So that's why he said, "Is something funny, sir? Something funny?" And his response to that was, "No, this has been 2 years of misery." And he said, "Because you keep smiling when I ask you questions." So that was just to point out to the jury that they're not, that's, an argument that they may make, that they're not even taking this seriously. They're just making a joke about this all. He never saw damage to the taillight. This is what Matt McCabe's testimony was, that even though he heard about it from Jennifer, but he actually never saw it himself. And then they spoke about the tire tracks. We all remember from day 13 the testimony that Matt McCabe gave about the tire tracks. He looked out 34 Fairview in the middle of the night, and he saw the SUV, and he saw tire tracks. And he saw them that they were out of the ordinary. They were weird type of tire tracks. That's what he noticed. And the cross-examination went something like the following, that, wait a second, according to your directions, you, Jennifer McCabe and Matt McCabe, gave directions to John O'Keefe and Karen Reed how to get to 34 Fairview. And now, according to your directions, the only way that it would make sense for them to be facing the direction in which you saw their car facing when you looked out that window or door, or both, would be if they did a 3-point turn, right? They would have to do a 3-point turn in order to get the car facing the direction in which you saw it if they were to follow your directions. Now, it turns out they did not follow your directions, but if they were to follow your directions, so therefore it shouldn't seem out of the ordinary to you at all, because according to your directions, that's what they would have to do. They have to do some sort of funny turn in order to get the car facing that way. All right. Now, there was also some testimony earlier about Matt McCabe having to go back into the house. So remember, Matt McCabe and Jennifer McCabe, at the end of the night, around 2 o'clock in the morning, they get into the car. They're taking Sarah Levinson home. They're taking Julie Nagel home. And at some point, Matt McCabe needs to go back into the house because he forgot something. And that was the testimony up until this point. But Matt McCabe testifies that he does not remember going back into the house once they actually left the house. Now, he did acknowledge that he backed out. He drove the length of the Alberts property, and he didn't see anything, which we pointed out that this is someone who was able to see from inside 34 Fairview and notice specific out of the ordinary tire tracks. But when he was backing out of the house, of the driveway, and then turning and going the entire length of the Alberts property where John O'Keefe's body was laying, even out of his peripheral vision, he did not see anything. Another thing, remember, Julie Nagel testified that she said to everybody that she saw a black object. She thinks she saw a black object. And Matt McCabe's testimony was that he never heard Julie Nagel say that. So did she say that or not? Then there was a group text exchange between Jennifer, Brian, Albert, and Nicole a few days later. And at some point he texted that he went back to the house. He was back in that area on 34 Fairview at February 1st, 2022, which was when the police came back. Right, Sergeant Berkowitz and some police officers came back to that area where they all of a sudden discovered the additional pieces of evidence like the broken taillight. And just so happens that Matt McCabe was in that area at the same time, driving down that street. And he texted that the troopers are back out front, but in front of the Asian house. Now, the next door neighbors were from Asian descent, and that's how he referred to them, as Asian. And he said he's going to try to get a picture of it. And he asked him why. But he wanted to get a picture of it for some reason. Now, also, I think he wanted to bring out with this point is that you're referring to them in a derogatory way, trying to show that Matt McCabe is referring to these neighbors not by their names, but the Asians, which can sound a little not so great, to refer to them as by your nationality as a group of nationality. So he said that he had to, but Matt McCabe testified that he had to go pick up a car or something. That's why he was driving down that area. And then he also went through certain text messages with Brian Alberts, which seem that they could be argued to show that they were very involved with who's being interviewed and what are they saying. So to kind of show that there is some sort of conspiracy and trying to corroborate the stories. Nothing that's like a smoking gun. At one point, there's a text that he should tell them that the guy never went into the house. And he said, who are you talking about when you say tell them? And he said, well, I was talking about Channel 4, not to the investigators, not to the police. But that was what they're trying to point out with some of those text messages, that maybe there was some corroborating here. All right, so that was essentially the end of Matt McCabe's testimony. Then we had Jennifer McCabe take the stand, and this is really all direct examination, so we don't know so much yet how the cross-examination is going to work, but we can already hear some of the issues that will be arising. So Jennifer McCabe testifies the following. At the night at the waterfall, everyone testified so far that John and Karen were acting completely normal. They seemed like a happy couple. No no sense of a disagreement. Everyone was sensing everything was fine. But Jennifer McCabe is the first person that testified that actually Karen did share some frustration that she was having with John. And it goes back to the Dunkin' Donuts issue. And that was that she took Kaylee to Dunkin' Donuts one day, and they got into a little fight about that, how if Karen is spoiling Kaylee by taking her to Dunkin' Donuts too much. So they brought up that issue. And then at some point, she also testified that Karen had her mind set on going to get pizza after the waterfall. She really wanted to get pizza. She kept mentioning it a number of times. And they refused to do it, right? Chris Albert did not want to go, neither did Matt McCabe, because they had this weight loss challenge that they always do around this time of year. And then here's another new piece of information that we hear with Jennifer McCabe. And that is, everyone could be wondering, why is Brian Albert Jr. not there? This, after all, is a celebration. They're all getting together to celebrate Brian Albert Jr.'s, seems to be 23rd birthday. And Brian Albert Jr. stays home, and he has some friends come over at his home to celebrate with him. But this whole party that everyone's going around and end up at the waterfall, Brian Albert Jr. is not even there. So Jennifer McCabe said that Brian Albert Jr. was actually struggling with anxiety, and that's why he didn't come. All right, so that's the first time we hear about that. Now, there's also some different reports about how everyone was invited to come to Brian and Nicole's house. There's been some different reports about this. At one point, Nicole Albert's testimony was that she told Jennifer, if Jennifer wants to come over, that's fine. And of course she said, well, if anybody else wanted to come over, that's also fine. But her invitation was specifically only to Jennifer. And now Jennifer McCabe testifies that actually Brian Albert Sr. invited everyone to come over. He invited the whole table, everyone who wants to come over. All right. At some point, she's walking with Karen, as we've heard from before, prior testimony, and Jennifer McCabe said to Karen, you just come with me, and John and Matt can come together themselves. So you come with me, and I guess John and Matt will come later. But that's not actually what happened. What actually happened was that no, John went with Karen, and Matt went with Jennifer. And there was some text messages back and forth. John was texting where to. That was his exact text message. That he texted to Jennifer McCabe, where to, and she called him back on the Bluetooth, in her car, using the Bluetooth. And there's some questions about whether she used Bluetooth or not, but she said that she used the Bluetooth in her car, and therefore Matt McCabe can also hear the conversation. And she gave John directions to go, how to get to 34 Fairview. And then eventually they called back. John O'Keefe called back. He also, got lost again. He was looking for directions how to get there. And I think the point of that is to show that they were actually together. It wasn't like Karen left John at the waterfall. They were together. They were in the car, and they were trying to get directions to 34 Fairview, so they were together. She testified that she did not see Colin Albert. Remember, Colin Albert left right away very early, around 12:05, before Jennifer and Matt came. And she did not see Allie McCabe. She also testified that John never came into the house. And that's consistent with everyone else's testimony that John never came into that house on 34 Fairview. There were some questions about whether she was actually charging her phone at the Alberts' house. One of the girls over, maybe Sarah Levinson or Julie Nagel, one of them testified that she was charging her phone, and then she was checking her phone every once in a while. Jennifer McCabe doesn't remember charging her phone. Now, finally, she sees the SUV. She sees the SUV when Julie Nagel's brother, Ryan Nagel, came to pick her up. Right? It wasn't actually Ryan Nagel driving the car, but Ryan Nagel was in the passenger seat. So she saw the SUV and she texted John, here, ? And that was around at 12:27. And then she texted him, pull behind me, because she saw that they were parked in front of their house, and she was saying, pull behind me in the driveway at 12:31. And still no response. And then she finally texted him at 12:40, hello. 12:42, she texts him, where are you? 12:45 again, hello. And then no response. And I guess she just figured that he left, and they just decided not to come in. At 4:59 a.m., when she was woken up by Kaylee, which we're going to hear about soon, she texts, "Please answer me," to John O'Keefe. And then she texts again, Karen is worried. We need to find you. And then 5:04 a.m., "Please answer so I know you are okay." So she's consistently texting John, "Where are you? Answer me. Hello. We need to find you." Things like that. And John never responded, obviously. She did testify that she played sometimes at 34 Fairview. There's this video about It's Raining Men. I don't know how this is going to be significant, but they did bring this out, and a few different witnesses testified that they played this video a bunch of times. It's Raining Men. So I'm not sure where that's going to come in. Maybe we'll see from when the phone extraction experts are going to get on the stand. I don't know, maybe this will play an important part of this case. But so far, they're just talking about how they played It's Raining Men. Okay. At 2 a.m., when Jennifer McCabe left 34 Fairview, when she got into the car, she didn't see anything on the lawn. And when she was actually in the car, she said that she was turned to the back to talk to the girls in the back, Sarah Levinson and Julie Nagel, who they were giving rides home to. Then she gets home. Right? She gets home with Matt. Matt didn't see anything. Jennifer didn't see anything. None of the girls saw anything. Maybe Julie saw a black object. That's still up for discussion, whether she said that to the car or not, whether she saw anything. All right. Then they get home. They finally get home after a long night. And it's around 2 o'clock in the morning. She's in bed. Jennifer's in bed. And Matt eventually joins her. And she asks Matt to watch a show together. He's not interested. He goes to sleep. What was she doing then? So she says that she was researching a basketball team. She's a basketball coach. Her kids play basketball. So she's researching a basketball team. She texted her sisters on a group chat with Matt and another individual. That was 2 separate texts. Then she was asked about an Apple Watch. And I guess this is going to be significant because I guess, again, we'll see. We've heard different reports about what type of actions were being taken by Jennifer McCabe that night and whether she was up walking around or not. But she was asked if she had an Apple Watch on her. Was she wearing her Apple Watch? And she said she doesn't recall. She has one. She doesn't recall if she was actually wearing it or if she took it off. Usually she takes it off, but there are situations where she will leave it on. And I guess you can argue that it can make sense that she would leave it on after such a long night. She was just exhausted and she didn't think to remove her watch. She just, went to sleep, was in bed and didn't want to remove her watch. I don't know. She said maybe she went into the bathroom. She does it every night before she goes to sleep. I think most people do that. And then, that's the only action that she remembers taking that night. Now at 4:53 a.m., Kaylee calls her and wakes her up, and says that John didn't come home, and she heard Karen screaming in the background, "Jen, Jen, Jen," and that's going to be the consistent when we keep hearing her screaming. Karen keeps screaming, "Jen, Jen, Jen," and she tells Karen gets the phone from Kaylee, and she tells Jennifer McCabe that John and her got into a fight and she left him at the waterfall. So this is the first time that we're hearing that there was some issue going on, some fight going on, and she tells her, this is Karen Reed telling Jennifer that John and her got into a fight and she left him at the waterfall. So Jennifer McCabe calls Julie Albert. She didn't answer. And eventually she calls Kaylee back. And she says, "We saw you outside Brian and Nicole Albert's house on 34 Fairview." And she says, "I don't remember going." And then she keeps repeating. This is in the first conversation, the second conversation. She's going to keep repeating with her all the time. Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And that she had a broken taillight. And she actually shows her the broken taillight when they eventually get together. She called, this is Jennifer McCabe now, she calls Tom Beatty, who is a friend of John. And then the next thing she hears, she hears Karen in front of her house screaming. And again, she keeps screaming, "Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Jen, Jen, Jen," just completely hysterical. And she decides we need to go to Fairview. And you would think that part of the reason for that is that maybe she hit him. And if she's thinking that maybe she hit him, well, then it's possible she hit him at Fairview. Eventually, they meet up with Carrie Roberts. Carrie Roberts does not seem to be such close friends with Jennifer McCabe, but they all meet up together. And Jennifer drove Karen's car because she didn't want Karen driving in that state. They drove to John O'Keefe's house, and Carrie also drove there. And then they met there, and that's when Karen showed them the cracked taillight. And she pointed out to them, she said, look, I have a cracked taillight. So this is Karen showing Jennifer and Carrie her cracked taillight. And the garage door was open. So the garage door was open, which was interesting. Why is the garage door open? Well, it would make sense if Karen rushed out of there and she was just beyond herself hysterical and she didn't close it. But the garage door was open. They go into the house. Now, John O'Keefe is very particular and everything has its place. This was a testimony. And he has seems to be a very clean and immaculate house. And this is a house that when you go in the middle of the winter, you take off your shoes so you don't track up the house. And Jennifer and Carrie respond to the question of whether Jennifer testifies that she and Carrie took off their shoes since they knew this about John. But Karen just walked right in. And what's the point of that testimony? What's the point of that? Well, there's really 2 points. Number one, you can say, well, you see that Karen doesn't care about John because she's just walking in, or she knew that John was not there and therefore she can do whatever she wants, or she knew that John was dead, or that she's hysterical and therefore she's not thinking to take her shoes off because she's not thinking straight about anything. And that's why she walked in. So exactly what the point of this particular piece of information about the fact that Karen did not take off her shoes, how that's going to play into the arguments here is yet to be seen. But those are a few options that we can think about. They looked around the house, and also she said that she didn't notice Karen looking around the house like Jennifer and Carrie were. So again, does that show that Karen knew that he wasn't there? Well, she came from that house, so she probably knows that he wasn't there. So why did she bring them back there? That's still a little unsure. All right. The last thing that she says, she sees Kaylee. This is Jennifer McCabe. She says, I see Kaylee, and I promise her that I am going to find John and that everything will be okay. So she tried to calm down Kaylee in that way. So a crying moment right there. So then they get all into Carrie's car, and they drive to Fairview because Karen kept screaming, they need to go to Fairview. And again, throughout this entire time, she's screaming, Carrie, 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 Jen, Jen, Jen. Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? A million times, over and over and over. Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Jen, 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 just completely going crazy. And then she would stop for a minute, and then she'd pick it up again. And then they were talking about maybe he's at Bella's house, was an old girlfriend of John. Ashley was an old girlfriend. And then Karen was going crazy about that. Just hysterical. And then they pull up to 34 Fairview as they're going down the street. And that's when Karen says, I see him. There he is. There he is. And they testified that Jennifer testified that she couldn't see anything. And Karen runs straight to John. Jennifer McCabe calls 911. Carrie said to get some towels from her car. She had some towels. And John's body was covered in snow. And here, again, is a question about how much snow was there on John's body. So they say that she was absolutely covered in snow. And then she's running around saying, is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? Karen starts to do mouth to mouth, and blood comes out of John's mouth. And at some point, they're trying to do CPR. So Carrie was doing compressions, and then Jennifer was doing compressions. And then she kept repeating over, this is Karen, she kept repeating over, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? This all time. Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Is he dead? Is he dead? Finally, the EMT come, the police come, and as she's talking to an EMT, here's where the story changes. She's talking to the EMT, which we heard before, Caitlin McLaughlin, and she says to the EMT, when the EMT was asking her how this happened, she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. And here again, the prosecutor said, wait a second. Did she say I hit him? Or did she say, did I hit him? Or could I have hit him? And she said, no. She said, I hit him 3 times. I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. So very clearly, that's what she said, not could I have hit him or did I hit him? But stop for a second. Let's assume that Jennifer McCabe is saying everything 100% accurately. Okay? Let's just think about the story for a minute. For the past half hour, Karen has been completely going hysterical. She's nuts. She's screaming. She's waking up the whole neighborhood, according to Matt. She's beyond herself. She's going completely nuts, and she keeps repeating the same things. Did I hit him? Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Could I? And she's completely playing this over and over and over in her mind. And then all of a sudden, EMT asks, since she changes her story, number one, does that make sense? Number two, even if she does change her story, can you hear the argument? And again, I'm not saying that this is what happened, but can you hear the argument that she's still not sure? She's just telling the EMT. She decided herself, she convinced herself that she hit him. Because she keeps saying, did I hit him? Did I hit him? Did I hit him? And she's thinking in herself, and she's going hysterical in her mind. She decides, after going crazy, that maybe she hit him, that she did hit him. And therefore, she's telling the EMT, yeah, I hit him. Now, does it mean that she actually hit him, or she just convinced herself that she hit him because she doesn't have any other explanation, and she keeps thinking, maybe I hit him, maybe I hit him, maybe I hit him. And therefore, when the EMT is asking her, she says, I hit him. So maybe that's going to be an argument that we hear about, but it's certainly, I think, a reasonable possibility for why she changed completely her tone and her story with everything with the EMT to saying that I hit him. And again, if she really did this and this was all nefarious, then why would she just all of a sudden make an admission about this? All of a sudden she's pretending to Jennifer and Carrie that she didn't do it. And then when the EMT asks, then she decides, you know what? Now's the time I'm going to come clean. Like, did she have a time for reflection now? It didn't seem that way. It didn't seem like, oh, you know what? She was thinking about this. She was not hysterical anymore. And she decided, you know what? It's time for me to come clean to the EMT. And I'm going to tell the EMT, you know what? I did it. Just arrest me right here and now. Like, there's still some big, I think, questions with this whole quote unquote confession that she made to the EMT that she hit him, that, you know, there's certainly, I think, arguments to be made, even if we accept everything that Jennifer McCabe is saying as true. All right. And at some point, they get together in the trooper car and they pray together. She says, please promise me you're going to take care of the kids. This is what Karen tells Jennifer. And she's completely still going nuts. So she's hysterical. And she's saying, Google how long it takes to die in the cold. And this is where that famous Google search is going to come in. And she says that she could have done it a number of times. And she said that she was screaming, she was freezing. This is what Jennifer McCabe is saying. That Karen was screaming in her ear, and that she was shaking her, and that it was freezing, and she's trying to still Google this, how long does it take to die in the cold? And it's possible that she went through that search multiple times, and she doesn't even remember what the search results were, because it was just a hysterical situation, and just she didn't even get to see what the results were. And eventually, the police officer, as we know, came and told her to wake up. This is Sergeant Link, I believe it was, told her to wake up Nicole and Brian. And she called Nicole at some point, but Nicole didn't answer because they were sleeping. And she walked into the house. And the door was unlocked. Remember that. The door was unlocked at 34 Fairview, which is, I think, a decent question in this case. Why is the door unlocked? It was a late party, so it could be they forgot about it. But the testimony is and was from Jennifer McCabe that it was typical for Brian and Nicole's Albert's home to be unlocked. That's how they ran their house. They left the door unlocked, which seems very strange, but that's what she testified to. And then she says that she opened the bedroom door. She did not say anything about bursting into the bedroom door. She said that she opened the bedroom door, and in fact, she doesn't even recall if Chloe was in the room or not. So she doesn't remember a dog barking and going crazy and running over to her. She doesn't remember any of that. Where's Chloe? According to Jennifer McCabe, where is she? She's not in the room. According to Brian and Nicole, that's where Chloe slept. But Jennifer doesn't remember anything about Chloe in the room. And certainly if she burst into that room, you would think that Chloe would wake up. But it seems from her testimony that she just opened the bedroom door, and the prosecutor didn't ask any more questions about how she opened the door. But it certainly seemed very calm. She called their names, and that's how they woke up. So she called their names. They woke up. Officer Link was waiting for them on the first floor. Julie Albert arrived at some time. She was shocked to find out. Brian Higgins, remember that's when Julie Albert was coming to deliver those Dunkin' Donuts, her ritual that she has with Brian Albert Jr. She was shocked to find out Brian Higgins came over at some point. Officer Link returned because I called him. So Officer Link was there once, spoke to everybody, and then Jennifer McCabe called him back to come back because the Officer Lang said, if you remember anything, you think about anything, let me know, call me back. And she did, and she wanted to tell him about the comments that Karen made that she actually hit him. Now, did she say that that Karen Reed was acting hysterical beforehand and was saying a million times, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And then only after a half hour of repeating that to herself, then she told the EMT that I hit him? Did Jennifer tell that to Officer Link? I'm not sure. Didn't come out from her direct examination. Maybe we'll hear that in cross-examination. So Jen went home. Then we know Michael Proctor came to speak to them. Brian Albert came because Jennifer asked him to come. So now we're hearing that Jennifer actually asked Brian Albert to come with her because he was like an older brother to her. No one else was there when she was talking to the troopers. Everyone else was away upstairs in bedrooms when Michael Proctor was talking to each individual witness in this case. Eventually, she texted Karen for Carrie's number, and I guess there's going to be some issue about this, why she was texting Karen for Carrie's number. She did not know Carrie, like we said. She wasn't friends with Carrie. She didn't have Carrie's number, and she texted Karen for Carrie's number. And since that day, there has been no further communications between Karen and Jennifer McCabe. So that is where the testimony was left off on Friday. We will hear how cross-examination picks up on Tuesday. Thank you all for watching. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, like, and we will see you next time.